All right, good morning. So what we're going to do in this first of two videos is create the basis of your skull, this project being your sugar candy skull in clay, honoring the Mexican celebration of Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. And what I have here, roughed out, so it's not finished, is a fairly sizable slab of clay. Remember, a slab is like a tile. And the slab is about as thick as my thumb. And on top of the slab, I have pushed in the eye sockets, pushed in the nasal septum, and with coils, remember those are long ropes of clay, built up the brow ridge, the cheekbones, and the upper jaw. I also used a short coil to build up this lower jaw here. To give me the basis in low relief, that means it's sticking off the surface of my skull. In the second video, I will come back and I'm going to embellish this. Right now, it's very plain. And for this celebration, and remember the word celebration, it has to be decorated. It has to be highly decorated or embellished. That includes lines and shapes, and most importantly later on, color. But let's get started. So with about a pound of clay, remember that you can shape this in the stronger parts of your hand. And we're going to take this pound of clay and not create a ball, but make something a bit more oblong, like a potato. And so with pressure just to one side, not to all sides, but one side going around, you can see that as I apply pressure little by little, the ball elongates and becomes more oblong, another word for that, or elliptical, all right? Now we're going to take this and change it into a tile, into a slab. So again, using the stronger part of your hand, little bit by little bit. Remember, so much depends on your ability to feel whether or not what you're doing is correct. So even with your eyes closed, you can do this. Little bit by little bit, uniformly pound against the surface, trying to detect with this portion of your hand if areas are getting too thin. And of course, you can always flip it. Begin to shape it so that I have a narrower chin than I do top of the head, and continue on. Now I'm going to do this until the head, the slab, is about as thick as my thumb. So there's my thumb. I can go a little farther. Your thumb and my thumb will be different, but nevertheless, we'll use the thumb, the thicknesses of the thumb as our guide. And again, you can see me narrowing one end. It almost looks like an egg, doesn't it, the way I've narrowed one end of that. And we're getting to the point where this is just about as thick as my thumb. See? There's the side of the slab, there's my thumb, and they're pretty much the same. That's a pretty substantial slab, but of course it will shrink as it dries. Now, what I'm going to do here, kind of across the middle, I have an imaginary center line down here and an imaginary line horizontally going left and right. On either side of that imaginary center line, I'm going to begin to place the eye sockets. Now, the eyeballs sit in the eye sockets and move around, allowing you to rotate your eyes. That, of course, is just the beginning. And as you do this, you can use your fingers. I think those are the best tools of all. And I'm going to go ahead and press out here, press out here. You can begin to see where the brow is going to develop, where the nasal septum, the hole for the nose, is going to be, where the top and bottom jaw are going to be, okay? Now, I think with my tool, just below and between the eyes, I'm going to add the nasal septum. The nasal septum is triangular in a way. It's bigger at its base and more narrow at its top. Right now, we're just roughing it out, and you can see I'm doing that with a tool. It doesn't have to be perfect. We'll continue to develop this as we go along. Now we're ready for some coils, and the coils will build up these portions that you see here, lifting them off the surface of the slab. Now remember, a coil is first a ball, and you can do that in your hand, or you can learn to do that on your work surface on the paper, but then it becomes elongated, more like a sausage, and then again, using the stronger parts of your hand and depending very much on your sense of touch, go ahead and elongate that piece of clay until it's about as thick as a number 2 pencil. So I'm going along the length of this, detecting areas that are a little too thick, leaving alone those areas that are thin, pressing just ever so slightly more on those areas that are thick, and making my kind of uniform coil from one end to the other. Remember, about the thickness of a pencil, okay? And you may be making more than one of these, all right? So there we go. And if you want to, you can flatten that out a little bit just by pressing gently against the top. That will give you a flat surface to connect with your slab in a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is attach the coil, and I'll start here along the brow ridge. And I'm going to go ahead and add water with my finger and create liquid slip. I'm going to create liquid slip to go along the brow ridge. I can come down here underneath the eyes. That will be where the cheekbone will be, okay? And then later on, I'll build up the top jaw and the bottom jaw, but those areas will come later. My water and my tools are handy. You can see them in the photograph. And here I go. I'm going to slip and score. Now you remember slipping and scoring. The slip is the liquid clay. The scoring, well, those are the cuts in the clay. And you've got to do a lot of scoring. You can see I'm doing many, many, many score lines here, many, many here around the eyes, in order to get the pieces of clay to attach well to each other. And I must go ahead on my coil, you can see it, and do slipping and scoring there. I'm going to create some slip, some liquid clay. Don't go overboard, don't use too much water. It'll get slippery and messy. And once again with my modeling tool, I'll go ahead and make many, 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 many small little cuts or score marks in this surface as well. Why do we score so much? It increases surface area. The more surface you have in contact with the main slab, the more likely things will stick or adhere. So we're just increasing surface area, okay? That's the important part right there. And our adhesive will be the glue. I'm sorry, the slip. Now, you can see I have the coil laid over here across the brow ridge, kind of evenly extended either side. I'm going to go ahead and dip it down there and wrap it around. Remember, you can go ahead and piece these things together if you want to, and wrap it around here. And I imagine I can now start, gently pat it down so it begins to stick, doesn't slip around on you, and then I'm going to go ahead and start welding those pieces together. Okay, not only on the outside, but on the inside. You'll probably have to pick, oh, it looks like a heart shape right now, doesn't it? Probably have to pick up the large slab and turn it in many different directions in front of you so that you can get everything to connect. I'm going to make everything come together very smoothly here. So this takes a little time. The clay is quite wet, not only because it's moist coming out of the bag, but also because you've added water to it. You'll actually want the clay to dry quite a bit before you do a lot of embellishment, before you do a lot of adding to it. So you can see that the eyes are super deep now. Know that we have that large brow ridge there. We can connect the nasal septum right here in the middle. And it looks like we might have to add a little extra down here for the jaws, but that gets you going. Let's go ahead, even though that's fairly rough, it is well connected. Take a very small amount of clay, again, roll it into a ball, and then that ball can roll into a very short coil. That is a very short, almost looks like a jelly bean. I'm gonna go ahead down here just beneath the nasal septum, add some more water, create lots and lots of score marks. Remember, you can use your tool to add the water and score at the same time, just like I am. Score marks, and lots of water. Put that top jaw in there. Go ahead and press it in. I am going to go ahead and give more shaping to the face in just a little bit. It looks like I could right about now push in from the sides and begin to develop those cheekbones there, right here on the side, and give ourselves a little chance down here at the bottom to pinch out and create the bottom jaw. Once again, a small amount of clay, roll it into a ball, roll that little ball into a very stubby little coil. Once again, looks like a jelly bean. Get your water over, get your slip made, get your scoring done. Do that to both pieces that are going to attach to each other. Press. Go ahead and blend that in. I'm leaving a little space between top and bottom jaw. Looks like that top jaw is going to have to expand outwards just a little bit. We might have to be pushing our clay around to get that done. And you can see that the basics of our skull are made. This is a kind of a scary skull. It might be later on that I'm going to open up that smile of his, because it is celebratory this holiday. We want him smiling. Besides, when you are a skeleton, you kind of smile a little bit, okay? I guess because it's so good being dead. Now, let's see how this is looking under the camera. You can see the nasal septum. This area in here is going to need some further development. The clay in this area is very wet right at the moment. It'd probably be a good time to stop and think about the embellishments you're going to add, all the details. If you limit the amount of water you use when you're constructing this, the clay won't be quite so wet. Now, you try.